what I was trying to do was capture kind of the everyday life of men and women in uniform. It was not about glorification of war. It was just about the small moments. About a year into the project at the Women's Memorial, I decided, having met a number of honor flights coming through the area, that I wanted to take it on the road. So I contacted Palm Springs Air Museum, and they said, sure, let's make a plan. So I came out here in January 2014 and set up, and I will be here for 4 months. Yeah. That bird went on a mission to Germany. They took off and soon noticed that this bird was flying around. So the bird, they made the mission together, and when they landed, they opened up the door and the bird flew away.
Oh, wow.
So that's the kind of story I like, and that's the thing about this project. Not only are there paintings, but every painting has a story. Some are big, some are small. World War II changed the role of women. They were no longer just stay-at-home housewives. They were capable of doing everything. So here we have, 3 women working on an aircraft engine. I was at the Women in Military Service for America Memorial.
And where is that memorial?
Arlington Cemetery.
Oh.
And one day, this young man came in and very enthusiastically leaned on my table and said, I have a cool picture of my great-grandmother and her identical twin sister. They were Rosie the Riveters. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, they're not military, but I said, go ahead and send it to me. So I gave him my card, and I'm glad he did, because what I got was this photo. And of course it was fun to ask people as they walked in while I'm working on it, and I have the black and white photo. I would ask them, how many people in this photograph? And they would always say 1, because they thought it was a reflection.
Oh, yeah.
Renee Montaigne, National Public Radio, Morning Edition co-host. I'd heard the story about her father's death, and he had been at Pearl Harbor, and I thought that was an interesting story. The photograph that I zeroed in on was this one, and it's her dad with his best friend Joe Ross, Huntington Beach, California, October 1941, 2 months before Pearl Harbor. And I kind of liked it because it was not a portrait, it was just 2 sailors on the town. And so it's October 1941, and they're Huntington Beach, they're shipping out to Pearl Harbor. December 7th, they were both radio operators, and Bud was up on watch, up on deck. Joe was below deck and was killed when the USS California, their ship, was torpedoed. The I guess full circle to the story is that when Bud died, he was also buried at the Punch Bowl within 100 feet of Joe. So Renee said to me, I felt my father's spirit coming out of the grave and joining Joe. So that was a nice story. It's horrible when you think about all she went through, and there are still people, it's every single day while I'm here at the easel. Out of the corner of my eye, I see people linger here for 5 minutes reading this, and if they're with somebody else, they turn around, you have to read this, they say.
Yeah.
So Eva Taguri, in short, was born in California, graduate of UCLA, and it was only because her mother sent her over to Tokyo in July 1941 to look after a sick aunt that her whole tragedy started. And in short, MacArthur said she never uttered anything that was treasonous. The irony was she was born on the 4th of July. Again, I was working from a black and white photo, but the choices of color were intentional, painting her in red, white, and blue. The West Coast Japanese Americans who were sent off to internment camps. Ultimately, 10 internment camps were set up. Most of the Japanese lost everything. So I chose to do this painting based on a photograph of a little girl, and I took the fear out of the photograph of the little girl. I just wanted to show bewilderment, and yet she's seen clutching a half-eaten apple in her little purse.
Yeah.
Probably, her only possessions. When the late Senator Inouye died, I did his portrait. After the painting was finished, I made a photocopy and mailed it to Bob Dole because I knew they were best friends. And they had met in the hospital in World War II. Bob Dole, while they were convalescing, said, "I'm going into politics, you should too." So, ironically, they were in different camps, different political parties, but they remain lifelong friends. Well, I always pair the two together. I always make sure that they hang together. Sure. And then there's the recent movie that came out called Monuments Men. One of the central characters was this kind of, as James Rorimer, one of the Monuments Men in the book says, when he met Rose Vaillant, who worked at the Jeu de Paume Museum, she was just a matronly middle-aged woman, not Kate Blanchett. So a friend who had actually loaned me the book said, "You have to paint Rose."
Oh, okay.
So this is Rose Vaillant, a very nondescript, and she ended up earning the Legion of Honor medal. One of the things I hear a lot from the public is he never talked much about it, quote unquote, every single day. And that history is being lost. So to offset that, I guess, is when people come in here, they do want to talk about it. But he says to his sons, "You know, I've said more to this man than I've said to anybody, including my wife, and I don't know why." You know, he wrote, "There are many books that have been written about World War II, and will be, but those are just words. What you do with your art is remember what I saw, what my generation saw." So I did the painting, and he said, "You know, my dad teared, I've never seen my dad cry. My dad teared up." Griff fought in the Pacific Theater, and I knew from his son how he felt about the Japanese. So that day, Griff and I were walking down. Now I can see the paintings, and in front of his portrait, three people went over there, and I pointed to the figure of Griff in the painting, and I said, "This man is here. Would you like to meet him?" It was a Japanese-American mother and her two teenage kids. So I waved Griff over, and he was gracious and polite and happy to talk about his time. As we're saying, you know, it's a meaningful time. These two people, the teenage kids, have wandered off, and now it's just Griff and myself and this woman. At one point, she reaches into her purse and she pulls out this origami heart that she had made. It was a dollar bill wrapped around a quarter. And she shows it to me, and she turns to Griff and she says, "Mr. Holland, I'd like to thank you. Give this to you. Thank you for your service." And the look on his face was overwhelming. He had no response. And I just said, "Don't go anywhere. I'm going to get my camera," you know. And there are times when I tell that story, I choke up because I know what a powerful moment that was. And that was really when it cemented for me why I'm doing this. That I do feel like there's some serendipity, there's some mission to this, and I'm still puzzling it. And I started the project, the tour, calling it a tour, World War II Portrait Tour. I call it the World War II Portrait Journey because from day one, I started blogging about the interactions that I witnessed. Every place I've gone, they've extended the stay, as Fred Bell has done here. Not only has he extended it another month, he said, plan on wintering here. And also, as he says, what you're bringing here is the human element that complements the physical, the machinery that all these people were a part of. I'm living a life that is nomadic. Most people wouldn't do it. I mean, I had a successful career in children's publishing, and last spring I emailed my editor and my agent, and I said, "You know what, I'll talk to you in 2 years. I'm hitting the road." Now, I did it without any financial backing, without any funding, because I knew if I waited around for that, they would all be gone. So I just loaded up the car, outline some venues and hit the road. And so that is the journey.